Multiple Winnipeg Jets unrestricted free agent targets have been revealed. While yes, the big ticket free agents have already signed with their teams during the NHL free agent frenzy, there are still a handful of players that are still available that could provide a team like the Winnipeg Jets some assistance as they go for another year trying to get their cup. The former President Trophy winners could potentially add some more players in the coming days. We're going to be looking at who these players are, do they fit with the team, and is this a move that they should make? But before we do hop into the video, I couldn't help but notice in the past 28 days, it looks like 87.2% of people who've been watching our videos on the Jets Digest channel were not subscribed to the channel. I'd highly suggest you throw us a subscription. We're going to be talking Jets all throughout the offseason and into next season. Make sure you're subscribed and you don't miss a beat. So let's hop into the video. Let's discuss what is the topic that we are discussing today. Of course, we are going to be talking about this article that came out on the Hockey Writers by Declan Schroeder called 3 remaining UFAs the Winnipeg Jets could target. So, we're going to talk about these players and see if it makes sense for the Winnipeg Jets to target them. Let's go to our first player. The first player outlined in the article is Nikolai Kovalenko, a player who's played in the KHL for a long time, has come over to the NHL recently in the past year, the past 2 years, my apologies, and has some interesting results. So, he played for the Colorado Avalanche this past year and then was a part of the Mackenzie Blackwood trade that sent him over to, sent Nikolai Kovalenko over to San Jose. With the San Jose Sharks, he ended up playing 29 games, had 12 assists. His total stats for last year was 20 points in 57 games. So, while this is nothing to be super excited about, this is a player who's had a lot of track record of scoring in the past. And while he is not a big player, he's only 5'10", 180 pounds. He plays a pretty fierce in the corner style game that could be of benefit to the Winnipeg Jets. We know how much they love their forecheckers in their bottom six. So a guy like this could be an option there. And then on top of that, if you look at his numbers in the KHL, especially when he was with the, I'm not going to try to pronounce it, but the Novgorod Torpedo, I'm not going to pronounce the first name because I won't be able to tell you guys properly, but in his last 2 seasons in the KHL, he had 54 points in 56 games and 35 points in 42 games. And that is notable to me because the KHL in general, from what we've seen in the past a little bit, it is a harder league to score in than the NHL. And so a guy like this who has had some scoring in the past, been able to score in the past, and has now moved his way over to North America, while he may not have had some crazy points in his first year in the NHL, he still has, he's still getting used to North American ice. You got to remember that when you're playing in the KHL, you're playing on international, much bigger sized ice. It's a big jump for players to make to change over to the North American style of ice that, of course, is a lot tighter, a lot harder to navigate through. And so another year of that under his belt, and this guy could potentially, have some decent bottom six scoring potential. So that's why he may be, of value for the Winnipeg Jets to look at. The next player we're going to talk about is Jack Roslovic. We all know him in Winnipeg. We all know that Winnipeg loves to reunite with their former players. He played here for 3 full NHL seasons. He played with the Moose, played with Kyle Connor on the Moose also too. Had a good connection with him. But of course, he was part of that Line A trade that sent him over to Columbus. And since moving away from the Jets, getting out from under the the backlog of wingers that they had at that time, he's actually been able to spread his wings a little bit. You can see in his seasons with Columbus, notably his first one that was coming out of the pandemic, he was almost a point per game, which is not too bad. But as we go throughout his NHL career and continue on, it looks like in general he scores half a point a game, 526 total NHL games, 260 points. Not too bad. Definitely not the worst thing. But when I look at this player, the issue that I see is that he is a defensive black hole, or not a defensive black hole. He is not good defensively, essentially. And we all know that the Winnipeg Jets, in their, this guy would be, of course, closer to a middle six guy rather than a bottom six guy. But we'll talk about, if there even is a spot on the Jets for a guy like this. But in general, having, the ability to score is something that the Jets are going to need this year. So that works with him. Maybe we could, at some point, if we want to break up that top line, maybe he could be put back with Kyle Connor and see if he, can reunite what they had with the Moose. But in general, a very interesting player. He is a middle six scorer, definitely not good defensively. You can see his minuses. Not that we think that plus minus is a great stat, but it can give you an idea if a player is constantly, on the ice when the other team is scoring. But that he's definitely is an interesting thought. However, like I said, he's just the thing with him is, as much as we love to talk about the Jets wanting to reunite with their old players, I see him more as a guy who the Jets would not want to reunite with. If you look at the guys that they've, traded assets for to get them back on the team, your Mason Appletons, your Brandon Tanevs, those are specific types of players who are grinders, who are able to go out there and, the way they provide their value is just by having a motor and being constantly on the forecheck. Jack Roslovic is not that type of player. So I'm not really sure about his fit with the Winnipeg Jets, but we'll move on to the last player to talk about, the one who I think is the most interesting of them all, Victor Olofsson. So 29 years old. He's played played with the Buffalo Sabres for a while. He was, riding shotgun with Jack Eichel, and then eventually he made his way over to play with the Golden Knights, where he once again played, riding shotgun with Jack Eichel. If you take a look at this player, this past season, he had a very unusually good season defensively. If you take a look at his micro stats and things like that, he whenever he was on the ice, the opposing team was not getting a lot of shots. However, that is a one-year anomaly. If you look back at his previous seasons, especially with the Buffalo Sabres, he has always been a very bad defensive player. And as far as offensive goes, this guy is a middle six scoring winger. This past year, he sprained his ankle, which is why he only ended up playing 56 games, 29 points in those 56 games. But I would say that's a departure from what he usually can provide. In general, you take a look at his more complete seasons, 20 goals, 28 goals in that 2022-23 season with the Sabres, and those Sabres were not good. So maybe you can look at the defensive warts in his game and say maybe it was a product of where he was playing. One season with the Golden Knights, a team that is generally a lot better defensively, and magically he's good defensively this past year. So he does have some interest for me getting a guy like this who can be a scoring winger, but he is a bit of a wild card because you're not really sure. Is this a guy who, found his game playing for a better team, or is this a guy who, was part of the problem why, the Sabres were so bad for so long? But now that we've discussed these players, let's talk about the Winnipeg Jets as a whole. Does it even make sense for them to be adding a player like any of these three guys? So I've done a quick little Puckpedia GM here just to give you an idea. Of course, I had to add in Gabe Vilardi, Morgan Barron, and Dylan Sandberg, who are all RFAs. They'll definitely be on the team to start the year, considering they've filed for arbitration, which I talked about in a previous video. But if you're wondering, I just gave Gabe Vilardi $7 million for 6 years. I gave Morgan Barron $1.5 million for 2 years, and Dylan Sandberg $6 million for 8 years. I wanted to try and be on the higher end of at least like cap hit wise of what they could get, just to show what is the worst case scenario cap wise for the Jets, which we can go over and we can look at really quickly. With this Puckpedia GM I have right here, the Jets are just $4.5 million under the cap, so it does provide them some options to go ahead and add a player. However, I'd like to add that when you look at this lineup, that we have to also consider in the fact that Jonathan Toews could be making not just $2 million, which he has listed on the cap friendly here, or sorry, on the Puckpedia. But he could have, with his performance bonuses, if he plays 60 games, he could be making north of $5 million. I think it was 5.25 mil if I'm correct. So that kind of eats up your remaining savings on the cap there. However, if for some reason the Jets end up being a great team this year and they want to add something at the deadline, if they do go over the cap, those bonuses can be pushed to next year. But in my opinion, that's something I would like to avoid, because when I look at this team, let's talk about fit for these players. The big holes that I see on this Jets team are on the second line, and I would say it has to be a high-profile scoring winger. You're losing Nikolai Ehlers, which is a big loss for the Winnipeg Jets, and I think Jets fans are going to be surprised at how important that player was to both transition game, the power play, everything. I think the Jets are going to take a step back this year, and I think adding a guy like Roslovic or Olofsson, these scoring wingers, personally, I don't think that they move the needle for me. You already have Iafallo, Perfetti, Nyquist, Nino Niederreiter, and this cap-friendly roster I have here doesn't even include the likes of Braden Yeager, Nikita Chibrikov, who's going to have a big push to try and join the roster this year, Jared Anderson-Dolan, who joined the roster last year after getting healthy, and playing for the Moose for a little while, and he looked like he was awesome on the fourth line. Did I mention Brad Lambert, who also, again, another guy who could be, with a strong offseason, could be pushing to join this Jets team. He has a lot of speed. He has a lot he can provide for the Winnipeg Jets. So when I look at this roster, unfortunately, to me, it just screams that there's just no room for these guys. Now, I'm not even talking cap wise, despite the fact that you obviously, factor in Jonathan Taves bonuses, but you want to have room for your younger players to go out there and turn some heads at camp. Let's say Nikita Chibrikov comes in and, shows himself to be worthy of a third line spot next to Adam Lowry once he's healthy. Then what happens then? You either push out Tanner Pearson, David Gustafsson, Cole Koepka. We already have a lot of players in that kind of middle six, like lower end middle six to bottom six style players. So for me, as much as there is some upside when you look at a guy like Kovalenko, it just doesn't fit. Like there just isn't room for a player to go, hey, despite the fact that you may have some upside here, we already have, we want to give the upside spots to players like Braden Yeager, Nikita Chibrikov, Brad Lambert, Jared Anderson-Dolan, who can come in here and show their worth for the team. They're already in the system. The only reason I would want to go out and get any of these guys is if the Jets, foresee themselves taking a big step back this year, and you're going kind of the Gus Nyquist route of like, hey, we'll give you $1 million, and if we're bad by, X date, we will trade you away, and then that way the Jets can recoup some assets. But again, I think they already have those players. You already have Gus Nyquist. You already have Cole Koepka. You already have Tanner Pearson. So honestly, when I look at these guys, despite the fact that they may fit stylistically or upside-wise, unfortunately, there just is not room on the roster for players like this, unfortunately. But there are also some more UFAs that are available. Who knows what the Jets will do? If the Jets do sign people, I'll be here to break them down. Make sure you throw a like on this video. Hit subscribe if you really liked it. Have yourself a wonderful summer. We'll be here to break everything down with you. Peace out.